Hi, I'm Peggy Farron. Welcome to the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel and nature photography. Hey, are you shooting in manual comfortably? If not, you know we have a class called the 4 Weeks to Proficiency in Photography. It's a live class, even though it's on the internet. I teach it live. We use GoToMeeting, and you've got homework every day. And I'm telling you, the homework is what makes the class, because you have to take what you learned in each class and actually apply it, and you're really, really going to get it. Now, we teach shooting in manual, we teach composition. If you're not winning every photo competition, maybe that's why. Maybe you don't understand the rules of composition, and yes, there are rules, you can break them, but it's a good class to learn the basics there. Flash on and off camera, and then the techie stuff like metering modes and focus modes and things like that. Anyway, if you check our website to see when the next class starts, it's understandphotography.com. But in the meantime, on our website, understandphotography.com, in the show notes for today's notes, we're going to have a link to a free webinar called How to Get a Solid Photography Education in Just 4 Weeks. That's a 45-minute little video, and you'll learn a lot about a little about a lot of things, and you'll get a chance to see my teaching style. So if you like the free video, maybe you'll like the class too. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So today on the Understand Photography Show, my guest is Bill Lee. Now, Bill is a nature photographer who, if you live in this area, you've heard of him because he's had a book out on the Everglades for a very long time, and everywhere you go, you find this book. It's in all the Everglades, like the state park, Smallwood Museum, everywhere you go, you see this book, and it's amazing. Bill's a nature photographer. He's passionate about capturing a variety of subjects in just the right light, and he's become a huge bear advocate. So we're going to talk about bears today, a little bit about everything, but bears specifically. Bill's also an author and an educator. Well, I already told you he was an author. He's got at least 3 books out. So welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. I'm so glad. I can't even remember how I found out you were going to be in the area.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But,
I can't remember. I might have just contacted you because I knew you came into this area, because you don't live here in Southwest Florida,
correct,
right? You live.
Correct. I live in East Tennessee, just
wow.
next to Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
And that's really where you're well known, in that area.
Yeah, I do more there. But although I worked on the Everglades book for 6 years, and as a kid I lived in Hollywood, Florida.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I do have a Florida connection.
Okay. Because I thought you were from Florida because I saw your book everywhere. I've seen your book for a long time. When did this book on the Everglades come out?
It's been out 2 or 3 years now.
So I've seen it many, many places. So I thought you were a local. I think that's what I did, And then I went on your website and it said you lived in Tennessee. I was like, what? I thought this guy was a local guy.
And I think we just got lucky on our timing.
Yeah, because you're just finishing up.
A photo tour. Yes.
And here.
Right in the Everglades.
You just finished.
Yes,
so
yes.
I was lucky to get you.
So
perfect timing.
And a few weeks before that, it was winter in Yellowstone in the Grand Tetons. So it was kind of a shock to come from the cold of Yellowstone to the warmth of the Everglades. So, but I've enjoyed it.
I think the shock would be easier to take this way than the other way, going from the Everglades to the snow and cold.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do the Everglades first and then the Tetons.
Yeah. Now, so tell me about your background. Now that I know that you're originally from, were you born in Florida or just raised there?
No, I was actually born in Illinois, but moved down to Florida when I was about 4 years old.
So you're kind of a Floridian.
Yeah, or one of those darn Yankees that came down and has kind of come back and forth. So, and I went to school at the University of Florida.
Okay.
So, again, have the Florida connection, but I do love the Everglades, and that was why I did the book. I do a lot of work in the Smokies, and I love the Smokies, but you know, the Smokies aren't in dire need of saving. They might be kind of loved to death, but with the Everglades, it's one of the most endangered ecosystems in the world, and so I just wanted to try to connect people to the Everglades, and hopefully so that they would take action on behalf of the Glades.
Okay.
And that usually means with a political vote. Right now, they're trying to do the reservoir. Lot of Everglades in politics right now, and unless people step forward, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so those of us who care and love what we have here need to step forward and let their voices be heard, because we can make a difference. And I think that's what I would like to see nature photographers do, is take up a cause that they believe in and use their photography to make a difference on behalf of the natural world.
Okay.
And you know, it puts meaning behind your photography versus just going out and taking pretty pictures.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
So, and that's what I do with the bears too.
Now let's back up a little bit. Now, how did you get into photography in the first place?
Well, I grew up fishing.
Okay.
And I moved to Vicksburg, Mississippi for my first job out of college as a forester. And I couldn't get used to the muddy water of the Mississippi. So one day I picked up a camera and I went out and I laid down in an opening, at the edge of an opening, thinking that some wildlife might come into it. And sure enough, a couple of turkeys came in. Now, I didn't know if they could see me, if they could smell me, if they could hear me. But, you know, I was laying on my stomach. I heard the steps coming up behind me, and they stepped out into the opening, and I raised my camera, and I set the f-stop, and I set the shutter speed. And by the time I took the picture, you know, they were like two little bitty dots a mile away. But it was a real adrenaline rush, and from that point on, I was hooked.
Oh my gosh!
I found that I've always loved animals. I've just always been a big animal lover, and the wildlife photography gave me an excuse to get out and be with the animals that I love. So
it's
so
funny
that's
you
how
say
it kind
that,
of got
because
started.
I met a couple years ago. I met this guy who takes me out into the Everglades, and we go swamp walking all the way up to our waist in the water, and we always look for an orchid because we need to have a purpose to be out there, basically. So it's like, okay, we carry all our heavy gear, and we're really kind of just being out there to be out there.
Yeah.
But it's more fun if you have a goal. Like our goal is to find some rare orchid, take a picture of it, and then we hike all the way back.
So you're doing it more in the spring and summer, huh?
Because I don't have time in the winter.
When the mosquitoes are the worst.
Yes. But in the winter, I'm so busy because this is our season, so I got to work in the season, so there's no days off in the season.
Well, and that's why I made the book last 6 years, because I figured once I finished it, I wouldn't have an excuse to come down for so long. But I do have the excuse to come down in the fact that I need to market the book.
There you go.
But it isn't the same as when I was down here photographing for it.
That must have been nice. So you came down when? Tell me about that little journey.
Well,
for 6 years you came down here like
off
once a
and
year
on.
or twice a year or 10 times a year?
2 to 3 times a year.
Wow.
A lot of the 6 years was doing the research.
Okay.
And because I did write all the text. And so I wanted the text to be really interesting. And I wanted it to be on history.
Okay.
So, you know, I did the reading, did the text, and then I mostly came down and just chased light.
Okay.
And because I wanted it to be a book of art. You know, there's so many subjects you could cover, but I didn't want to just document. I wanted artistic images.
Oh.
And my idea was that, you know, a lot of people don't come to the Everglades. Even people that live here don't come here. But if they could see the beauty and try to connect them to the Everglades in such a way that they did take action on behalf, that was really my goal. And I always think of Everglades National Park as the Rodney Dangerfield of national parks. It doesn't get any respect.
Oh
You know,
my God.
a lot of people that actually live here just never come to Everglades, and they just
Really?
don't see the beauty.
That's
And it is
interesting.
a
You're right, 'cause
subtle beauty.
a lot of them just go to the beach. You're right.
Yeah,
People come to
yeah.
Florida to go to the beach. They don't. I know. Whenever somebody's visiting me, I'm like, you need to get out in the Everglades.
Yeah, it's hard to compete with the beach, but
Yeah.
But the beauty is subtle, and that's why the title is Where Wonders Only Whisper,
Oh,
because
I
it's
like
not an
that.
in-your-face beauty.
So you just came down a few times a year and just kind of got
And
up before dawn every day? And
every day.
did you have a buddy, or did you just do this all by yourself? Or?
Sometimes my wife came with me, but our animals at home usually kept her from being able
Oh,
to come.
yeah.
So I rented a room, and every morning I'd get up a couple hours before sunrise so that I could go and come almost all the way back in case the light wasn't right.
Okay.
And
That had to
I
take
just
a lot of
chased
planning,
light.
though, right?
Yeah. Well,
Because you don't want to be driving around in the dark in the middle of the Everglades unless you know where you're going, right?
yeah, but you never know what you're going to find. And for me, my special light are those foggy mornings.
Oh,
So
love
I would
that.
often drive, 40 miles from the entrance to Flamingo, and maybe at the very beginning was actually the best fog that I would find on a given morning. So I'd leave enough time to get all the way back.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of literally chasing light.
It's scary to drive out there, too, in the dark, I think.
There's not, there's hardly no traffic.
But it's really dark, too.
It is really dark. It is.
There's no lights out there.
It's funny.
Except for when you're trying to do night sky photography, then you see all the light pollution in the world. It's like...
Yeah, yeah. But it's kind of ironic in the fact that, South Florida is so busy. But when you enter that park boundary, it's like,
That's exactly.
I made it.
That's why I
made
love
it.
hiking out there. We don't do anything too strenuous. We walk slowly. I'm not like a super in shape person. I like to walk slow. And of course, when you're walking in the water, you have to walk
Yeah,
slow.
yeah.
But just being out there, it's like, it's some kind of release. You just,
is.
everything just, you're out like on another planet almost. It's amazing.
Yeah, you're away from the news, the politics, all of the negative
And
stuff.
of course, the weather here is always awesome. So you were like a forest ranger?
I did end up working for the U.S. Forest Service, yes.
Okay. And that's when you got into photography.
Yeah.
And then how did this become a career for you?
Well, what I did was I worked out an arrangement with the Forest Service to be off 4 months of the year and work 8 months.
How'd you make that gig, man?
It wasn't easy, but it worked. And I just used a day of annual leave per pay period, and I was still a full-time employee. And it was during tough budget time, so they were looking for ways to save money too. So it worked out good. And then when they came along with an early retirement offer, I jumped at that opportunity and then just went full-time with it.
Wow. And how long ago was that?
I retired in 2005. I had my first photo published in 1981, and so a lot of photographing in between.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. So now you have other books.
Yes, I did. My first real book that was mine was the Cades Cove book.
And where's
And
Cades Cove?
That's part of Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Okay.
And so I'd been photographing there for years, and I wanted to know the story behind the places. And there's just a lot of interesting history there.
I love studying the history, too. We were
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
that before the show. The history's so interesting, and it makes the photography more fun, too.
Yeah, well, like with your tours of
The Old Naples Photo Tour.
Old Naples.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of stuff. I mean, if you know the story behind the scenes, it just helps you make the scenes come alive.
Next time you're here, come in on Monday. We do them on Mondays.
Oh, you do them
Every Monday during season.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Now you tell me.
Now you tell me. Okay, so this book, did this take 6 years?
I only took one photo for that book. I had all of the photos already because I've been photographing there for years.
Because you live there.
Right. So, it was the research again that I wanted to tell the history behind the scenes. So that took a little while, but no, it didn't take the 6 years that the Everglades book took.
Yeah, but once you write one book, does the second book easier?
Not really.
No?
I mean, the first book went faster than the second book.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So it just depends on the subject.
Wow. And then you also have a calendar. This is something you
Yes,
put out
yes.
every year?
Yeah, I do a Cades Cove calendar every year, and it kind of goes along with the book. And a lot of people come to Cades Cove.
Okay.
It's got
Where
it has
is it?
about 2 million visitors. It's in East Tennessee.
East Tennessee.
It's
okay.
just a little bit east of Gatlinburg.
Okay.
And if it was a national park in itself, it would be amongst the top 10.
Oh my gosh.
Cades Cove itself gets about 2 million visitors a year.
Wow.
So it's
And
a
they
busy
visit
place.
because what? They have
Because
cabins in the
Yeah,
mountains
it's
and
got historical structures, it's got great scenery, gets a lot of fog, and it's a good opportunity to photograph wildlife.
Okay.
So,
a lot of photographers
and a lot of people.
and a lot of people. 2 million is a lot of people.
Yeah, you got to be mentally prepared to photograph in Cades Cove. In the fall, it can take 4 or 5 hours to do the 11-mile loop.
Because so many people?
Because so many people, and it's one way, single lane. People see something like a bear, they stop in the middle of the road, they throw their doors open, they run into the woods, you can't get by them. Sometimes people are just absolutely crazy, especially when they see a bear.
All right, well, let's segue right into the bears, because I know you want to talk about the bears.
Yeah, I can always talk about bears.
Okay, so, all right. So what led to your fascination in photographing the bears in the first place?
Well, I think like a lot of people, I didn't really know much about bears. And so, you know, there's a lot of misinformation about bears, and a lot of people are afraid of bears.
I'm afraid of bears.
Well, when you get to know bears, you'll realize that you really have nothing to fear. And I'm talking black bears. I mean, black bears are my specialty.
Black bears are what we have here in Florida,
That's
right?
correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because we have a lot of bears in Florida.
Yeah, you have a few. You have a few, but remember, it's not that long that they've been off of the endangered list.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that. No, I
yeah,
did
they
not know
were. The Florida black bear was endangered,
that.
and it hasn't been that many years that they took them off of the list. So.
Interesting. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, but most people just don't understand bears.
Yeah, because here, you know, as this area grows, people move farther and farther out, and of course, the bears are a big nuisance to the people who live out there in their territory because they're always tearing into their garbage and all this other stuff. So, all right.
Well,
so
we invade their territory.
I know.
You know?
I know.
So,
They were there first,
yeah,
right?
and we can change our habits a little bit and make it a better world for bears. For instance, you mentioned the garbage. If you live in bear country, you need to keep your garbage either in your garage, a closed garage, or a bear-proof container. If they don't get the food, they aren't going to come. If there's no food reward, they won't be there. So as we move into their territory and their habitat, we owe it to them to coexist peacefully.
Right. Now, okay, so let's talk a little bit about bears. So you started just because you love to photograph wildlife in general, and then you got a fascination with the bears. So let's just talk about photographing them. What if I want to become a bear photographer, the best bear photographer in the world? What do I need to do? Where am I going to go? How am I going to find them?
Well, that's the trick. They are shy and they're reclusive.
Okay.
And there's some national parks like Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Shenandoah National Park, parks out west that have black bears, and you need to understand them before you really approach them. And you need to keep a distance. They say bears are wild and unpredictable, but bears are really very predictable.
Okay.
It's just that you need to know their body language and their signs that they give us. Now I say that if you want wild and unpredictable, you just need to look at the human race, not bears. Bears are pretty easygoing. They just want to get along, and so, you know, just going out and being in areas where bears live is your best chance that you may just encounter a bear.
So you just have to be very patient and just sit
and
out.
lucky and just be out. But if you do encounter a
Is
bear,
the best time of day?
you know, it really varies on bears in national parks where they're not hunted can be just active throughout the day.
Okay.
So it's not like if they're a hunted population, they tend to be more active early morning and late afternoon.
And it's still legal to hunt bears?
Yeah, that's a pretty big controversy in your state of Florida.
I never heard of anybody hunting
They
bears.
just brought back hunting of bears 2 years ago
Oh,
in
that's why I
Florida.
never heard of it, because it's new.
And there was quite a controversy, and they were going to have it for a couple of weeks, and they killed so many bears right off that they did stop it. And unfortunately, when they killed the bears, I think it was about 350 ballpark that they killed. 10% of them, I think it was 34 or 36, were lactating mother bears,
Oh, wow.
which means that more than likely those cubs
Probably
died too.
Wow.
So if they killed, let's say, 35 mother bears, and they average about 2 cubs per bear, that's another 70 that may have
Wow.
died.
So they stopped it, you said, or?
Well, there was a big outcry.
Okay.
And again, you know, all gets into politics. And so there's been some really active groups here in the state of Florida who have made a push that we don't really need to be killing bears. Even the state, they kind of sold it on the idea that we need to kill bears because bears are nuisances. And there's getting to be too many complaints. But even the state admitted that where they had the bear hunt isn't going to affect those bears that are living in neighborhoods or right next to neighborhoods, because they don't hunt in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, nobody wants people walking around a gun,
Right.
shooting around their little kids.
So it's a matter of education.
Yeah.
We can live, we can coexist with bears,
All right. So
but we have to want to.
All right. So I live here in Southwest Florida. I want to be a bear photographer. Where am I going to go? How am I going to find out where to go?
You just, boy, in Florida it would be tough. It would be tough. I've seen a few photos taken at Fakahatchee, but the chances of
Because they're so shy.
They're so shy, and they're so few and far between.
Yet,
You're
right
probably
here,
going to have to.
all the people who live in Golden Gate Estates are always complaining about all the bears.
Well, you might want to buy a house in Golden Gate Estates.
That's the way to find them.
And just hang out.
Leave my garbage out, I'll be all set.
Yeah, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to be enticing them in with garbage, I know. But, you know, you just got to do your research and find out where the bears are.
And by research, how do you do the research?
I mean, you can get on the internet, obviously.
Where are the bears in Southwest Florida?
Yeah, or just, you know, best place to photograph bears. I'm sure something comes up. You know, obviously a lot of people go to Alaska. That, of course, could include grizzly bears. I know myself, I went to a place called Annan Creek.
Where's that?
In Alaska.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of known for black bear photography, or black bears feed on salmon there, which makes for some great black bear photography.
So throughout the United States, where are all the black bears? Like most of them. So that one spot you just talked about in Alaska.
Yeah. It really varies. I mean, the southern Appalachians have them. Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Maine.
So there's a lot of black bears.
There's a lot of places.
And a lot in the Smokies where you live.
Yeah, and a lot in the Smokies.
Is that how you got into it?
Yeah, sort of. I also ended up finding bears in Minnesota, so I kind of got involved with the situation there, and really came to know bears. But you know,
Now, what is, I got involved with a situation. What does that mean? You're not
Well-
getting by with this, that.
there was a man that was feeding bears in Minnesota for almost 50 years.
Okay.
He was a logger, and his name was Vince Schutte. And the bears would come in and break into his camp when he wasn't there. And so he would shoot and kill bears. And then
So he
when
was feeding them and killing
no,
them?
no, he wasn't feeding them. Yeah,
Oh, I thought you said he was.
Yeah, he did. He ended up. One day he got to thinking, you know, the bears aren't mean; they're just hungry. So he thought, maybe if I put food outside of my cabin, they'll quit trying to break inside. So he started feeding the bears, and he ended up feeding bears for decades.
And they quit breaking in.
And they quit breaking in, exactly.
Ah.
Yeah. So I had heard about this place and this man, and so my wife and I went and visited. And it was a bad situation. People were bringing in garbage, and bears were tearing into garbage, and it was kind of a big mess. But if you look through the garbage and got to know the bears individually, you could see, and we saw something that we never knew existed, an extremely intelligent animal with individual personalities.
Okay.
And as we came to know bears, we came to love them. And we realized that there's all this misinformation about bears out there. So we wanted to change that, and we wanted to do that through our photography, by giving talks, by just letting people know the truth about bears.
Is your wife a photographer as well?
No, but she's a big bear advocate. So she knows as much about bears as trained researchers, simply from having spent so much time with them and observing their behavior.
Now, when you say spend so much time with them, what does that mean?
Well, she would live with them for 4 to 6 months of the year. At times at this remote location.
The same place
Yeah.
in Minnesota?
Yes.
Your wife lived there?
Yes. No
Not
running
you?
water, no electricity. Well, somebody had to make a living.
Oh my gosh,
So
she was
I
living
made
out.
the living, and so she would go up there and she would live with the bears, and she had a little old Jippo logging trailer that's is probably 10 feet wide by maybe 20 feet long. And like I said, no running water, no electricity. And it had an old iron hitch on the front of it. And oftentimes bears would come and rub their back on it. And they have a really tough hide. It sounded like sandpaper. But if you were in the trailer and a bear's rubbing his back on the hitch, you know, the trailer was going back and forth. But, and then if you had to go to the bathroom, we did have an outhouse. So it wouldn't be unusual for her to get up in the middle of the night and go to the outhouse and be walking amongst 20 or 30 black bears. And the only rule we had was that you had to use a flashlight, because if you were to step on a bear and startle them, then you have a chance of getting hurt.
Oh, yeah.
But as long as they know that you're there and
They don't bother you.
no, no.
And she lived in the winter or in the summer?
No, they go into their winter sleep in the winter.
Oh,
so,
duh, that's
yeah,
right, I
so
forgot.
it was in
You
the
learned that in grade school.
summer.
Bears
Yeah.
hibernate in the winter.
So she could be up there anywhere from May till September, October.
And do you own a piece of land there? Is that what you, and put this
Yeah,
trailer
well-
or whatever it is on?
Well, no, that was Vince's
Oh, oh.
trailer. So we did form a nonprofit to operate the sanctuary, and I'm no longer involved with it, but there is a nonprofit group that does operate the sanctuary with the idea to educate people about bears.
Oh my gosh, so your wife, she's a rugged gal.
Yeah, she can tough it out with the best of them.
Now
for
how
sure.
long, how many, you said she did
We-
that for 6
we-
years?
No, for a number of years. We got involved in 1993.
Okay.
So just in the last year or two has she cut back on the number of months that she would spend up there. But and when I go up there now, there's still a couple of bears that I know from 1993.
How long do bears live?
They can live to be 30, 35, even
oh, wow.
39.
They live a long time.
But that's extremely rare. Extremely
Wow.
rare.
Wow, that's a pretty
Yeah.
cool story. You got any other
Yeah.
stories? Got any
Well,
bear stories? Give me
yeah,
some bear stories.
I've never met a bear I don't like.
Really? You've
yeah.
never met a mean, crabby,
No.
crotchety old bear?
No, but I can't say the same for people.
Ah.
I've met a few cranky ones of those.
Me too.
But I guess, the one thing I would like to say is if people are out photographing, no matter where they live, and they encounter a bear, they don't need to be afraid. I always tell people, just talk to them. Talk to them in a calm voice, just like you would a dog or any kind of animal.
How about baby talk?
No, I'd skip the baby talk.
I hate when
but,
people talk to their animals like that.
But just talk to them and
Just
let
say,
them know
"Hello,
that
bear,
you're there.
How are you?
Yeah. I mean, they can read so much from your tone of voice, and that puts them at ease. Once they know that you're not going to hurt them, then they'll pretty much ignore you.
Okay.
So
They're not curious. They're not going to come up
yeah,
to you and start sniffing
sometimes
around.
they're curious, especially
oh my
the
God,
cubs.
That would scare me.
The
to
cubs
death.
are curious.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, so now why are you afraid? Why would
they're
you
big
be?
and they have big teeth and they have big claws.
When you go out into the Everglades, are you afraid of alligators?
Yeah, of course I am, but not really. But I know
No.
they're not going to bother me.
There it is.
So
there
the
it
bears-
is. Obviously you're not going to go and step on an alligator.
No.
And
I have a healthy fear of them, but I
is
also
it a
know
fear or
they're-
respect?
I guess it's both.
Well, I want to change people's fear of bears to respect,
Okay.
because there's no need to fear them. So, and they're just.
And you're right. I mean, how many times I don't hear stories about bears attacking people ever. I mean, sure
Well,
there must be stories,
yeah,
but I
and-
don't hear them.
Yeah, unfortunately, if one does, it's so blown out of proportion, and it makes worldwide news.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. We had somebody in the Smoky Mountains, a man and a son, went camping in the Smokies. Now, if you're camping in the back country, they have a rope system between trees where you hang your food. You do a pulley and you put your food up there, okay, so that bears can't get to it.
Okay.
Well, they'd been out hiking for a couple of days. You're out hiking, you're sitting by a campfire, you're cooking food, your clothes smell like food. So the son, who was about 16 years old, he has a hammock, and he puts the hammock between two trees, and it's an enclosed hammock. So there's no human form for the bear to see.
Okay.
But there's the smell of food. The bears know that they string up their food in a pack between trees. A bear comes along and he goes, "Ah, here is a low bag of food. I smell it."
Oh.
So the bear goes and grabs the bag. Well, he's grabbing a person. It ends up coming out that, there's a killer bear out there attacking humans.
Oh.
But it's a case of mistaken identity.
I see.
So when you know the facts, it changes the whole thing. So, we need to not be in hammocks, enclosed hammocks, smelling like food in bear country.
How do you not smell like food, though, if you're cooking your food and
Well,
can't take a shower out
well,
there?
one thing is change your clothes.
Okay.
Put the food-smelling clothes in the bag that goes up the tree. Don't have cherry chapstick in your pocket.
Oh.
So there's a lot
Stuff
of things
like
that you
that,
can do.
yeah.
Again, remember, we're supposed to be the smart species.
Yeah.
And don't get in a hammock smelling like food strung between two trees.
Oh my gosh, like bait.
Yeah, exactly. It was like bait for the bear, and the bear. Then of course, when the kids started screaming, the father comes and tries to beat the bear off, let go, and the bear's being attacked, of course he's going to get defensive.
Right.
But it still doesn't mean that the bear is mean or that the bear
Right.
has done anything wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now, when you're photographing bears, what kind of lens do you bring?
Okay, I usually use somewhere, I mean, I think ideal is 200 to 500,
Okay.
which is what I do. You know, it depends too on if you're in open country or in the woods. You know, it's hard to get a long view through the woods.
Oh, yeah.
But different places and different parks have different regulations as to how close you can get to a bear.
And how
So
do
you
you, how do
need
you
to-
control that? If the bear
Well,
comes at you, what are you going to
Well,
do?
the bear's not going to come at
They're
you.
no.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
usually the problem is
People
people
getting too
going
close
at,
to you.
yeah, getting too close to
Now,
the
do
bears.
you know where the dens are? Is that what they call them, dens?
The-
What do they live in?
In the winter, they can have a den where they do their winter sleep.
So it would be the best time to photograph them, like when you know they're going to start coming out of
No.
the dens, or
Because the chances of you just timing it just right,
you really don't know?
yeah, it'd be pretty slim. So it's just kind of a hit or miss thing. I mean, the more time you spend out in the woods, the more likely you're going to encounter a bear. And so, you know, the other thing is the equipment, but also I never photograph bears on sunny days in
Oh,
the
yeah.
woods, always overcast
And
because of the contrasty light on a sunny day,
it just
which
doesn't-
means that you're going to have limited light. So you need to have a camera body that has low noise at high ISO.
Okay.
So
And what
those-
kind of what do you shoot with?
I'm using a Nikon D500,
Okay.
and before that it was a D4S, and both of those cameras do well at high ISOs.
Yeah.
So, and with it being a black bear, you want to make sure you don't underexpose, because if you underexpose and you try to bring out detail in that underexposed black area, that's where the noise is going to be the
Oh,
worst.
yeah.
So there's some things to really keep in mind. But
What else you got? What else you got?
What else have I got? Avoid them on sunny days in the woods. But that's really anything.
But see now, let me get my mind around this, because I'm thinking black bear with the sun glistening on their coat would be prettier, but you're saying no.
No, in fact, a friend of mine who I do a lot of photographing with and lead photo tours with, Chris Norcott, he calls those shiny bears.
Shiny bears.
We don't want to photograph shiny bears.
No shiny bears?
Because you expose right for that, and then you're going to get overexposed backgrounds.
Oh, yeah, good point.
You know, just like anything, it's the setting. Every subject has been photographed. It's the setting that's going to make your subject different, and that's avoiding busy backgrounds, even light, good quality light. You know, if you can get a bear to come out in early morning light in nice, you know, fog and those first rays of light,
Ooh.
that's great. But the bears in the Smoky Mountains, they sleep in.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, yeah.
My kind of animal.
Yeah.
I could probably photograph them. It's like all the birders here. Let's go, you know, 2 hours before dawn and photograph birds. I'm like, okay, see you there.
Good soft light. Good soft light.
And of course, that's when the birds are, I mean, the birds are here all day
Yeah,
long, but
yeah.
the morning is the best time, or
But
late
yeah,
in the
try to
afternoon.
photograph a white bird in sunlight that's even, you
Yeah,
know, an
that's-
hour up.
Yeah,
It's difficult.
white birds are tough in general.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
black bears are tough in general.
They
Anything
are.
too extreme, I guess,
Yeah.
is probably
yeah.
going to be harder to photograph. What about any of, you know, you see these cool shots of like a bear looking at you, and how do you get that? Being far away, probably.
You know, bears are naturally curious.
So they'll look up if they hear you, or
Sometimes, yes, but then at the other times they just kind of ignore you. So, you know, a lot of
They're
times
sounding harder
they're
and
looking
harder to-
past you. It is very difficult to
yeah,
photograph
it's like, oh my
bears.
God, now I know why I don't know too many bear photographers. This sounds hard.
It is hard. It's a lot of work, but I wouldn't trade my time with bears for anything.
Now, do you lead photo tours up in Minnesota in this
Yes.
sanctuary?
Yes, we do.
Because that sounds like to me like the best place to go see the bears.
It is. The bears come to you.
Yeah.
So
Now tell us about your photo tours. How many photo tours do you do a year?
well, I do about 7 or 8.
That sounds perfect to
we
me.
do.
Some of the people have been on my show, they'll have 25 photo tours a year, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how do they even do it?
Burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would worry about that.
So now where are your photo tours?
Well, we
And,
just did Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons
that's right.
in winter,
That's
and that was
right.
really neat. All subjects look good in snow. So we've been lucky to come across some red fox, some coyotes.
Is that where the foxes do that diving
yeah,
thing?
and
Did
the
you see it?
coyotes too.
Oh,
you
the
know,
coyotes
you
do
know,
that too?
the mice and the rodents.
And they dive in the
Yeah.
snow?
And in fact, we've just recently come across a coyote that was fishing in the Madison River.
Uh-huh.
And we got some photos of him catching a 20-inch cutthroat trout.
Oh my
And
gosh.
you know, standing in freezing water. And there's been a bobcat that's been fishing the Madison River, and or not fishing so much, but hunting. So like they would hide in downfalls, and be waiting. And so if a duck or a swan or a muskrat came along, they could pounce on them. And so they're going into the river when it's below 0 to catch what they're trying to eat. And obviously, you know, if you come across that, I mean, just to photograph a bobcat in snow is great.
Wow.
So we do Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons. I just finished an Everglades photo tour. I'm going to be doing a Charleston photo tour in 2 weeks.
I love Charleston.
We do Charleston 1 year and Savannah the next year.
Oh, I love Savannah too.
Yeah.
And
And
you're right,
then the
that's a kind of a-
Smokies. So I do one in April in the Smokies.
Okay.
A friend of mine, Kevin Adams, he and I host an event called Photo Fest in September in the Smokies.
Okay, and what's
that's
that?
kind of a big event where it's over a 3-day period, 3 or 4-day period. And we have different speakers come and offer different outings, and that's a pretty big event.
And that's September.
That's September.
Do you remember the dates this
No,
year?
I don't.
No, I know you're like me. I'm not a detail person.
Kevin will kill me
We
for
will
not
put it
knowing.
on understandphotography.com in the show notes, and of course we'll have a link to Bill's website as well. So so that sounds really, really cool. So it's 3 days.
3 or 4 days.
3 or 4
yeah,
days.
we
And
kind of offer some things early on for people that want to come early.
Okay.
So
like
it's
the
kind of spread.
pre-conference stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we just finished up a conference here in Southwest Florida for the Florida Camera Club Council.
Say that 3 times.
I know. Well, plus I had to add the word conference to it. So it was the Florida Camera Club. Wait, Florida. I already forgot what it was called. Anyway, f3c.org is their website. But we did the same thing where I act like I was involved. I was one of the speakers, but I wasn't an organizer. But Joe Fitzpatrick is the president of that group, so he has been working his butt off. Anyway, but they had the first day was extra charge for the pre-conference workshops, and they did the same thing. They had all these outings and different classes and things like that.
Yeah.
So now, is it all, so it's all nature photography, I assume?
Mostly, but sometimes we do some travel photography and a little bit of everything, really.
And how many speakers do you have?
It varies from year to year, but half a dozen or so.
Really? Wow.
So
How much do you know how much it costs? You're not a detail guy.
Oh.
You're like me. Ask me
Is
any-
it obvious,
when you start
isn't it?
asking questions like that, I never know the answer either, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
I mean, I love workshops with one-on-one, you know, like, I mean, how many people are when you take somebody on a tour, workshop
It
tour?
kind of depends on where we're at. Like when we do the bear tours, it's just 6 people.
Okay.
So, because we don't want to have a big impact on the bears. And of course, the bears that come there are used to people. So the impact is pretty minimal on them, but still, you know, we don't want to.
Too many people, it
yeah,
gets confusing
yeah.
and noisy, and then of course it's like herding cats.
That's right. Yeah, herding cats amongst bears is a little bit more challenging. And when a bear goes from point A to point B, they expect the cats to move out of their way.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have a tendency to just freeze.
Oh.
And that's not what you want to do.
Let me ask you this, though, because I think I saw this on TV. If a bear like comes up at you on its two hind legs, what are you supposed to stand your ground? Are you supposed to not look them in the eye?
Well,
You're supposed to run.
No, you never run.
Never
run.
Okay.
So if you're walking through the woods and you startle a bear, there's a good chance the bear's going to stand up because they can get a higher viewpoint. So they're going to stand up and look. That doesn't mean they're going to attack, you know. So the first thing you just need to do is go, oh, sorry, didn't mean to spook you. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. And they can read a lot into that.
Okay.
So I'll tell you a little story.
Okay.
So I'm with this mother bear. My friend and I are with this mother bear, and she's got 3 cubs. And of course, you know, a bear can go up a steep hillside in no time at all. Not so with me carrying equipment. So I get up on the ridge where she was. She's out ahead of me, and I'm assuming she's got her 3 cubs with her. And it's some pretty thick understory. So we're just kind of watching her. There was no photo opportunity, and we just stayed back, okay? Well, all of a sudden, the cub let out a distress call. And when they do that, it sounds like they're calling mom. And they go, "Meow, meow." And boy, mom turned around in a heartbeat. The cub had gotten lost from mom in the thicket. We didn't know, and the cub was directly behind us. So when mom heard the cub in distress, she whips around where the sound came from, and what's there? Us.
Okay.
Okay. So she wheels around and she starts running directly towards us, towards the sound. And I just said, "It's okay, Mom. It wasn't us." And she stopped on a dime, and she's looking at my hands, she's looking at my eyes, and you can see she's processing what's going on. This isn't the natural predator that I would fear that would get a cub.
Right, right.
And so while she's thinking about it, all of a sudden the cub does another distress call. Well, this time, you know, she's alert and she's looking at us, and she realizes the cub is beyond us, and she just runs right by us. But that just shows you how smart they are, and how I think there's a universal understanding of bears that when you do this and just talk to them calmly, it's like, I'm here in peace. I'm not going to hurt you.
So you put your hands up like.
Yeah, just like
when
this.
the cops say, "Raise your."
Yeah.
Not that you're familiar with that. Just kidding.
I might surprise you.
I'm teasing you.
So, but it just shows you how intelligent bears are. And how you don't need to fear them, you just need to respect them, and you just need to kind of understand that what you hear about bears, just 90% of it isn't true.
Well, you know, for those of us who are a little older, like when we watched TV shows in the 80s, I'm just thinking of like MacGyver, and you know, there were all times where some big scary bear would get up on its hind legs and.
Yeah, we call that sensationalism.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know, and as a result, people do think bears attack when they're standing up like that.
If a bear stood up like that, I would be very afraid. So you're saying just say, "Hey, buddy,
so
wasn't me. Put my 2 hands up."
So one of my favorite photos is I'm photographing a mom. She's sleeping next to the base of a big tree. She's got 4 cubs, okay? And everything's fine. I've been there for hours. She knows not to worry about me. All of a sudden, from behind me, another bear shows up, a female bear with 2 cubs. Well, the mom that I'm photographing, is concerned. She stands up on all 4, and the cubs understand that there's something going on. So they all jump and cling to the tree, ready to scurry up the tree if mom gives them the signal. So mom's standing up looking, made a great photo. She's standing upright like a human being. All 4 cubs are clinging to the tree. And the mom behind me, she didn't mean, you know, she was just
passing by?
Yeah, she was just passing by. And so she turned around and left. Well, when the mom that I'm photographing got back on all 4, 2 of the cubs on the tree jumped on her back, and that made for a great photo.
That would be a great photo.
But it wouldn't have worked if it wasn't overcast, because it was in the woods.
Okay.
And again, you got to have enough shutter speed to freeze the action. Although the action was pretty still, because everybody was kind of looking. But you would never want to run. You never want to run from a bear.
Yeah, because they can run faster than you, right?
That's right. That's right.
And they can climb. There's no.
And it can elicit a predator-prey chase response.
Okay.
So it's just never run.
Never
just be
run.
calm. Just talk to them. They're like a big dog, in a way.
Well, I just remembered too. Didn't they train them in circuses and things like that? Were those black bears? Or?
Yeah. Well, and I think some of those are bears over in Europe in particular.
I don't think they do it. Do they still do it?
I think it's been pretty well discouraged, and should be. Yeah, I mean, they're just too intelligent of an animal to treat like that.
Yeah. But that's like, I just remembered that. They were in circuses, and all that stuff is changing.
Yeah.
We're not even going to have Shamu anymore.
Yeah. And it's good that we're sensitive.
I agree.
And
I
as
totally agree.
nature photographers, we can bring light to a lot of these things.
An awareness is a lot of it. I totally agree. Well, where's your book on black bears?
Well, that's the next project. And really, I do a Facebook post, except for when I'm traveling, almost every day on black bears.
Really?
And the idea is for people to learn about bears and learn the truth about bears. And because I do this, and I'm writing something most every day, and I get a lot of comments. I mean, a typical post, I'll end up with anywhere from 75 to 200 comments.
Wow.
And just taking the time to read all of those, and even a very limited response. But people are starting to realize that bears aren't like they think they are.
Yeah. Now, is this on your business page?
Yes.
So
yes.
it's facebook.com/
Bill Lee Photography.
And Lee is L-E-A.
Right.
So
right.
facebook.com / Bill Lee Photography.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that'll be in the show notes too.
Okay. So if you enjoy learning about bears, that's a great way to do it. So, and again, nature photographers, if they have something that they really love and they want to champion a cause, they can use Facebook to reach a lot of people. Now, I give talks on bears. If I have 200 people show up, that's a big response.
Right.
Not typical.
Right.
But with every daily Facebook post,
you can reach thousands and thousands. Sure can.
Yeah.
That's why I started the show, so we could reach more people too.
Yeah, with a message.
So when's the book coming out?
I got to start it first.
6 years?
I keep saying, if I take 6 years for every book from here on out, I don't have a lot of books left in me. So I need to be a little bit faster.
It's hard to write a book.
It is.
Joe and I have been writing a book for a while, and we pretty much finished the book, but just getting it done, like put together, and we couldn't find the right pictures. And
the editing and the re-editing.
Oh my goodness.
And for my books, I did the photos, I did the text, but I also did the layout and the design.
Oh, okay.
Which, that really makes it your project completely. Yeah. And each double page is like composing a panoramic photo using your multiple photos and your blocks of text. Mm-hmm. So that can be a fun part of it too.
Yeah. Well, you're talking to somebody who's a wedding photographer as well, so I've designed many books in my life, but usually for people's weddings.
Well, now you should do one on bears.
I'm trying to think if I've ever even seen a bear in real life. I'm kind of a city person. I'm still amazed that I go out in the Everglades. I can't even, in fact, my closest friend from, 8 years old was here in Florida visiting in January. And I'm like, oh, we need to go out in the Everglades. She's like, we're from Detroit. I'm not going out in the Everglades. Are you crazy? But I took her out. She wouldn't go in the water. But there's not much water this time of year anyway.
Yeah.
But
Well,
she loved it. She loved it. And then we didn't see any alligators until we were back in the truck. And then she, right out the window there were alligators. So she was so happy about that. I'm thinking she doesn't realize they could just jump up if they wanted to. That'd be nothing.
A lot of people think that as a bear photographer that I'm some big brave guy. You, as a wedding photographer, are much, much braver than I am, because I'd rather face a bear any day over a bride's mother. So, you see, I have more respect for you. You are fearless, and I would fear that situation.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so we're going to work on the book. What else is next for Bill Lee?
I could just never get enough of bears. I just enjoy spending time with them. So I'm just going to kind of keep doing what I do.
Now, you have a little bit of retirement money, right?
Yeah.
And then you make your money from selling books and from your workshops? Is that how you make a living as a photographer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not a lot, but if you love what you're doing,
you got to be happy
then
in life. But
you're making a lot.
I've had some really inspirational guests on this show because it is about loving your life.
Yeah.
It's not about money. It's about loving your life. And you obviously love your life.
And if you can make a difference with your photography, that is really rewarding.
Yeah, you've got a passion, you've got a purpose in life.
Right, exactly.
So what's your website? Where can we find you?
Website is billlee.com, L-E-A, and I'm not really good at the website. I always say that I try to update it every 10 years, whether it needs it or not. But if you haven't been there, it'll be new to you. And then the Facebook, if you're interested in learning more about bears.
You're very active on your Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
well, we will have those links on understandphotography.com in the show notes for today's show with photographer Bill Lee. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I was so honored. I was, Bill Lee.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And so tune in here on the Understand Photography Facebook page to watch our show next week at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If you miss any of the shows on Facebook, remember we put them on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to get updates on when we're going to do the live show as well. Or you can also listen to this as a podcast on iTunes. Just do a search in the podcast part of iTunes for the Understand Photography Show. I'm Peggy Farron. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week on the Understand Photography Show.
Get up!